Hello guys and welcome. In today's video we're actually going to be doing moderation. This video is going to be a little bit longer than usual as there's a lot to talk about in moderation. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and get into the video. Alright, so now that we're in our code and all of that, we're going to head and actually go ahead and get started in index. We're going to have to also make sure we have Mongoose installed. In order to do moderation, we want Mongoose or Mongo database to handle our Mongo database. This is where the warnings will be stored. Or if you have a global settings set up, you can as well. But we're not going to do global settings. We're going to do something different. So to get started, we're actually going to import Mongoose. So we're going to do const Mongoose equals to require Mongoose. After that, we can do mongoose.connect. Then we can go ahead and import our Mongo URL. I already have done the favor in putting it into our secure token folder, so I don't have to show you my URL. So we're going to import that in. However, that's where you will put in your URL. We're going to call it, and we're going to import some variables. We're going to say use new URL parser. I'm going to set that to true. I'm going to say use invite to approach and equal that to true as well. And we're going to say use find and modify and set it to true. After that, we could say then console.log Mongo is activated. Okay, so there's our console log. So now we have Mongo connected. We're gonna want to go to config real quick and add one simple variable. We're gonna add exports logs channel ID equals to. Then we're going to come to our Discord, and we're going to pull our logs channel ID. Obviously, I'm going to make it the same as this video's channel for now. And we're going to paste that in. So now we have our channel ID, to where the logs are supposed to go. Next up is in source, we're going to want to create a new folder and call it modules, or whatever you want to call it. It's where the database creations happen. In that folder, we're going to start by creating warn.js. In this file, we're going to say const mongoose equals to require mongoose. Now we're going to create our schema. We're going to say const warm equals to mongoose dot schema. From here we can say the guild ID is a string. The member ID is also a string. The warnings is an array. Then we have staff is also an array. And then the date, which is also an array. Because they can have multiple warnings. We want to make sure that it makes sense. Okay. After this, we need to export it so other files can access this. We say module.exports equals to mongoose.schema, mongoose.model, sorry. Then we're gonna say, I'm gonna say warns. Then we're gonna import warn. Okay, there we go. So now we have our model for our mongoose database. From here, it just only gets easier by going to /commands, creating a new folder, calling it mod, and creating mod.js. Now you may think we should create each command separately. It's up to you. However, we're going to put it in as a sub-command group. So it's going to be all in one folder. Now there is a way to make them all separate from there. However, this way I found is easier than having to create a separate moderation handler. But you can make a moderation handler. Okay. So from here, inside the folder, we're going to do module.exports. Equals to. We're going to say name is mod. Our description, which is important because remember, we're dealing with /commands, so we want to provide the description for the auto-generated /command system. So our description is going to be moderation commands. Next, we have options. Which is an array. Now this is important to provide the options. The options are basically a key to how to create these commands. And if you remember from one of our previous videos, we switched /commands to be automatic. So the options get pulled here and put in. So it's important that we actually define options here. Otherwise, options will be passed as null, and there will not be any options. So we're going to start off with our simple timeout command. And we'll work one command at a time to prevent confusion and all of that. We're going to start with name, timeout, description. Remember to remove this. Will be timeout user. Next, we want the type. This is a sub command. And then our options again. Now these options will get passed in as well. So it's important that we have our options as well, because this actually has options that we want to collect. These are things that we need from the user when they submit a command for a timeout. And to collect that data, we need to do this. So our first option is going to be simple. It's going to be the duration. How long should the timeout last for? Our description is going to be the time to time out the user. I'm going to say day, hours, minutes, or seconds to let them know what formats they can use. Now, this is going to be a string. And we can say it's required because we need it. That information is needed. Otherwise, the bot may crash. But don't worry, I'll show you how to prevent it from crashing as well, in case the required variable doesn't work as intended. Because it's never too safe to double check the code. Okay. Next is name. We're going to collect the user that they want to ban. Collecting the user is important. Without the user, we won't be able to ban someone, because we can't just ban a random person, can we? Or time out a random person, or whatever. So the user is actually important. So we're going to say the user to timeout. Next we're going to do type. And then we're going to say user, because we're collecting user. This will allow them to collect a user from it. They can select the user instead of having to figure out IDs or tags or whatever. They just select the user they want. Okay. Next, we're going to say it is required because we want the user. We can't just ban blank. Okay. Next option you need for timeout is the reasoning. It's not required. However, it'd be nice to have. So we're going to say description. The reason for the timeout. Okay, so our type is string. Required is going to be false. However, you can set to true and did the. We can, yeah, it just skipped. Okay. Anyways, the required is going to be false. However, if you do want it to be required, you can just set to true and it will require it. Right, so that's that one. Now, usually you would ask for other commands, but we'll get to it in a minute. Next step that we need is our perm check. I'm going to say this is going to be one of those ones. So we're going to import it from there and say flags dot. We do not want anyone who doesn't have moderation to use this. But don't worry, we are still going to do manual individual checks as well. So who's going to do default to moderator members, because all moderators should have that permission to begin with. Okay. Next, we're going to do async. Is it command or it's going to do command on an interaction. So it seems like all we need is that at the moment. Okay. So then we're going to do command interaction. Alright. So now we got our command interaction imported. This will allow us to do multiple things. We're going to do this to make it easier. So we're going to import options, member, guild, and then channel from the interaction. Here we're going ahead and just get the const log channel interaction dot guild, or because we actually did this, it's gonna be guild dot channels dot catch dot get. You can either do one of two things. You could pass in the ID, or you could do a find and find it by the name. We're just gonna get it by the ID that we defined in config. Okay, next we're gonna do var embed. So we're gonna start creating an embed for all these moderation actions. So new message embed. Then we're going to do set timestamp. Nice blank. That's set footer. And then we're going to do text. Requested by member dot tag. Remember that user dot tag. What we can do in case it's deleted, member.id. Okay, there we go. Then we're gonna do, I think it's icon URL is member.avatar URL, and we're gonna do dynamic. True. So that's the footer. Now we want to set the color. I'm going to say random because it's cool that way. Then we can set title. Mod action. Okay. So that's our embed created. Now this is where our switch statement comes into play. Back into play since we used it. We're going to see options.get, and we're going to get the sub command. So pretty much just switching the names of the sub commands. Now we're doing timeout. So what I'm going to do is case timeout okay. So in this, we want to say if not member dot permissions that has permissions dot flags dot moderate members. So this is just a double check to make sure they still have moderate members from when they ran it. Now, if they were able to run this command in the first place, it would technically be true. But this is just a double check to make sure our permission handler has checked properly. Then we're going to return interaction dot reply content you are missing moderate members. Then we're going to make that an imperial response, so that way it's not publicly seen. There we go. So our permission check is over with that part. So now we have a permission check for this command. Now we need to get all our variables that we passed in through the options. And to do that, it's going to be simple. But first, you're going to run npm I ms. Because we're going to need milliseconds. So what we're going to do is const ms equals to require ms. So now we have an ms required thing. So now what we can do is come back down, do var time equals to ms. So what this ms does is it lets you type 1s or 1 minute, 1 day, or even 1 hour, then or 1 day. And then it transfers it into milliseconds, which timeout uses. So what we're gonna do is options that get string and duration. Now, in order to check, now we want to check to make sure it's not the max numbers. So let's say we only wanted 1 day to be the max. I might get the conversion real quick. So let's say we wanted the milliseconds. So we can say is if time is greater to or equal to this number, we're gonna return interaction dot reply. I'm gonna add some content. You can only time out a user for a max of 1 day. So that just tells them you can't do it because it's past the days that we're allowing. I'm not sure what the maximum days, maximum milliseconds are for timeout exactly. However, I do know 1 day will be allowed. I know it's more than 1 day. I don't want a lot more than 1 day. Alright. Next, we're going to do is user. So we're going to do var. Oh, yeah, wait. Also, we need to check before we run that. If not time. We're just going to do time equals to 60,000. We're going to do 1 minute for the default time. That way there's always at least a little bit of a time. If actually what we can do is, since we're doing it that way, or there we go. Let's do it that way. That's a lot cleaner. Okay, there we go. So now if this isn't defined, this will come to the rescue. Okay. So now we have timing. We need to also do user. But we want to do the member variable. So we're going to get member. We call it as user. And again, if this is not true, we can just pass in member. It may seem mean, but we're just going to do member for now. So we can do this. If user dot ID equals to member dot ID, we can return. And actually, let's go ahead, and since this is going to be in every action for this command, let's go and put user up here. When we say interaction dot reply content, you can not perform odd actions on yourself. Now you can allow that, but I'm not. I'm gonna say true. There we go. Okay. So now we got the user imported for every single one. So we don't have to put that anymore. Now we need the reason. Now reason is an optional variable. So in order to make this work as well, we're going to do that check again. No reason provided. Now, if this was the case, the user where it's required, you can simply pass reason like this, or you can check and return it if it's not existent. in the next line by simply saying if, not reason. But we're not going to do that because we want reason to be optional. Alright, next we have to actually time out the user. So we're going to say user timeout. Then we say time and reason. And boom. We're done. So then we can say interaction dot reply content timed out. And we're gonna say user. It needs to be these. User for options dot get string, because we don't have the duration in their format, so we're gonna put it back in the way they sent it, so they know, because the way they did it is the way they know how to do it. Then we're gonna say info just true. Alright, so now we have the interaction reply. Now we want to get an embed and send it to the logs channel. We're going to do embed.set description. We're going to say timeout user for now. However, you could put way more options in here, which I'm going ahead and just copy and paste in. However, it's up to you how you set your description. So we can copy paste that. And if you want it exactly like this, we can look in the down below is a link to the GitHub. Okay. So log channel dot send embeds. We're gonna say embed. Okay. So we have done with this command. So now we can just test it out by saying no dot and run the command. So now we can run /mod timeout right here. We're gonna say 2 minutes him, and we're gonna say test, and it says he's been timed out. If we check server settings and it logs, you would technically see it in there. However, there's one issue. He was administrator. So we need to rerun that command again in order to actually perform the mute. If you notice, there was an error because the user could not be timed out. I'm going to show you how to catch that in a minute. But first, let's go ahead and actually run the command. We're going to say 2 minutes for Lover the Dogs, and we're going to say the reason is test. So he should be timed out now. Okay, we're having errors. Missing permissions. Oh, it's the bot. It's missing permissions. So the bot is missing permissions because obvious reasons. So we can give him a star roll to do this action. So we're going to do mod timeout 2 minutes. Start the bot back up again. So we're going to say 2 minutes. Look at your dogs, and the reason will be test. And boom, he should be timed out now. And if you check the logs, you see the reason test set timeout for user until today at 12 p.m. So if we actually switch accounts real quick, I know the music. You can't join, you can't talk, etc. until the 2 minutes is fully up. So we're going to switch back. Alright, so that is the timeout command. And in roughly too soon here, he should be able to talk again. I'm not sure if it shows in the logs when it's removed, but we'll find out. Anyways, that's the timeout command. Now, on timeout is similar, except you set the time to 0. Or null, sorry, you null the time. Okay. Anyways, there's it for today's video. In future episodes, we'll do all the other moderation commands, so that you know what you can do for us. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video.